There are crimes of passion, crimes of greed, crimes of desperation, and then there are crimes of arrogance. Crimes committed not because of need, not because of a dark compulsion, but because one person truly believes the rules of society simply do not apply to them. This is the story of a woman who convinced herself that she was above Americans and their laws. A case that shook a quiet courtroom and left even the most seasoned judge stunned at the audacity, the entitlement, and the sheer brazenness of one woman's actions. What do you think so far? Should someone who believes they're above American law ever be allowed to walk free? Drop your thoughts in the comment section and subscribe. Her name was Svetlana Ivanova. Born overseas in Moldova, Svetlana moved to the United States in her late 20s. By all accounts, she was sharp, ambitious, and carried herself with a certain air of superiority. To friends, she often spoke about how backward Americans were, how their laws were childish compared to the way things were handled back home. At first, those around her thought it was just cultural differences, maybe even a touch of arrogance. But in reality, it was something far deeper, far darker. Svetlana didn't just disagree with American laws. She believed they didn't apply to her at all. And she was about to prove just how dangerous that mindset could become. It began with small things. Neighbors in her upscale Florida community noticed her car parked across multiple driveways, blocking fire hydrants, even left running overnight in violation of city ordinances. When confronted, Svetlana's answer was always the same. Those are American rules. They don't apply to me. She refused to register her car, claiming the Department of Motor Vehicles had no authority over her. She ignored property taxes, insisting her sovereign status exempted her from paying what she called petty American bills. When code enforcement officers issued citations, she tore them up on the spot and laughed. At first, local officials didn't take her seriously. They assumed she was just another difficult homeowner, someone who would rack up fines until her arrogance caught up with her. But Svetlana was not like the average citizen. She was building a life, brick by brick, where the laws of America existed only for other people, not for her. And then came the crime that would land her in a courtroom, facing the full weight of the justice system. It was a hot summer afternoon when police received a frantic call from a small grocery store on the edge of town. A store clerk, barely 20 years old, reported that a woman had walked in, loaded her cart with over $1,000 worth of groceries, wine, and luxury items, and then simply strolled out without paying. When confronted by the clerk, the woman, later confirmed as Svetlana, didn't run. She didn't panic. She calmly turned to the young man and said, "You don't have the right to ask me for money. I am not under American law. You are." She pushed the cart straight into the parking lot, loaded the groceries into her luxury SUV, and drove away. The incident might have been treated like shoplifting, until police arrived at her gated home later that evening. That's when Svetlana's arrogance turned the case into something much bigger. When officers asked her to step outside, she refused. Instead, she handed them a stack of papers she had printed from the internet, documents filled with pseudo-legal jargon claiming she was a sovereign citizen of the world, and therefore immune to arrest. "You cannot touch me," she told the officers. "I am above your American laws." But police weren't convinced. They placed her under arrest, and what should have been a routine case of theft was about to explode into one of the most bizarre and defiant courtroom spectacles in recent history. The first day of trial, the courtroom was packed. Reporters had caught wind of the case, dubbing her the woman above the law. Some came expecting comedy. Others expected another fringe conspiracy theorist who would be quickly silenced by a judge. But what they witnessed was far beyond that. Svetlana entered the courtroom wearing a white suit, her head held high, striding past guards as if she were the one in control. She refused to sit at the defense table, instead choosing to stand in the center of the courtroom and glare at the judge. When asked to identify herself for the record, she responded, "I am Svetlana, daughter of the earth, not subject to any government. Your system has no jurisdiction over me. I do not recognize you, your court, or your laws." The judge, a seasoned veteran with decades on the bench, tried to keep proceedings under control. But Svetlana interrupted at every turn. She refused to let her public defender speak, declaring she would represent herself as a sovereign. Every time the prosecutor mentioned the theft, she shouted over him, calling him a puppet of a false system. The tension in the room grew heavier with each passing minute. And then came the outburst that would shock everyone present. During the testimony of the young grocery clerk, who nervously described how Svetlana had walked out with hundreds of dollars in goods, Svetlana suddenly stood up, slammed her hands on the defense table and shouted, "You are lying. You are all liars. I do not answer to you or to this system. This entire courtroom is an illusion." Gasps filled the air. The judge ordered her to sit down. She refused. The bailiffs moved toward her. Svetlana raised her arms dramatically and screamed, "Touch me and you'll regret it. I am untouchable under your false laws." The bailiffs hesitated, unsure if she would lash out. Cameras from local media captured every moment as the courtroom dissolved into chaos. In that instant, Svetlana wasn't just on trial for theft. She had turned the courtroom into her stage, her platform to defy the very concept of law itself. And then, the military police arrived. Because here's the twist. What the public didn't know at the time was that Svetlana's husband was an active-duty officer in the U.S. military. Her refusal to follow civilian law had spilled over into his career. Her behavior had triggered concerns at his base, where she had caused disturbances by trespassing and threatening military personnel with the same claims of sovereign immunity. The moment she caused an eruption in the civilian court, military police, already monitoring her case, stormed the building. Viewers inside the courtroom described the moment as surreal. The double doors burst open. Armed MPs in uniform swept into the chamber, commanding presence silencing the chaos instantly. The bailiff stepped back, unsure how to proceed. Even the judge froze for a moment as the military men approached. Svetlana's expression changed for the first time. For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed her face. She realized this was not the civilian system she had mocked for months. This was the United States military. And unlike civilian police, the MPs had direct jurisdiction through her husband's service. One of the MPs stepped forward, voice booming through the tense silence. "Ma'am, you are in violation of military installation regulations and are hereby taken into custody for further investigation." The courtroom was stunned. The woman who had declared herself above American law was being dragged out by military police, her screams echoing down the hall. In the weeks that followed, the trial concluded without her. She was convicted in absentia of theft, contempt of court, and multiple counts of obstruction. Her husband's military career unraveled as investigators revealed the extent of her disruptive behavior on base. But what stayed with those who witnessed it wasn't the theft itself. It wasn't the legal outcome. It was the arrogance, the brazen belief of one woman who thought she could walk into a country, take what she wanted, and declare herself above the law. The story of Svetlana Ivanova became a cautionary tale, a reminder that arrogance, when left unchecked, can spiral into madness, and that no matter how untouchable someone thinks they are. Before we see how this courtroom drama finally ends, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. The next case I'm uncovering might be even more shocking than this one. Eventually, the law catches up, even if it takes storming a courtroom to make it happen. Because in the end, no one is above the law.